Hi, this is Nam from Easy Sunday Club, and today we're going to talk about the right computer you should buy to start your art business. Your computer is going to be one of your most important purchases, as well as one of the most expensive purchases to start your art business. The reason why it's really important is because your computer is where you store all of your art files. It's where you edit your art files. It can potentially be where you create your Shopify site and e-commerce store. It can be where you contact people and potential clients to sell your art or to display your art. And it is expensive in the sense that it's usually going to hit 4 figures and it's going to be with you for the next couple of years. So I want to help you make the right decision for this important purchase so that you can focus on what you're good at, and that is creating art. There are all sorts of different computers out there, but I'm going to focus in particular on Apple Macintoshes, and there's a couple reasons why. Although they may not be the cheapest, there are definitely cheap options out there. But more importantly, I believe they are relatively easy to use and they are relatively difficult to screw up. You want something that just kind of works and works consistently and reliably. And if it does mess up, there are lots of resources out there on how to configure it or to fix it so that you can do what you're really good at, which is, again, creating and selling art. I like Macintoshes as well because they are relatively future-proof. Of course, nothing is future-proof. I just mean by that it will last you a long time so that you don't have to spend money every 3 to 4 years buying a new laptop. You can just buy something and feel confident that you can use it for up to 5, 7, even 10 years. Macs can stay in service depending on which ones you use. Before we actually start looking at different Macs to get, I want to talk about the criteria that you want to look at before you purchase a laptop. First criteria is, do you want a laptop or a desktop? So laptop, of course, is lighter, portable, comes with a screen and a bunch of ports. Desktop just comes with the computer, and you have to buy the screen separately and the keyboard separately and all these other peripherals separately. There are pros and cons for each one. Laptop, super portable. Desktop will take up more space, but maybe it can be cheaper, maybe it can be more powerful. So those are things to consider. The other criteria that are important are these 4 things. So first is the CPU. Second is the memory, third is the hard drive, and the fourth is the graphics card. So basically what the CPU is it's the brains of the computer, right? It handles all the processing. So if you want to do an addition of 1 plus 1, the CPU will take care of it. The second thing that you want to think about is the RAM, or the memory. It's a memory that is used for retrieving the data. Let's say you're multitasking, right? You're watching a TV screen using your CPU, and you want to do additional process, the computer will keep the video ready for you and resume it in the RAM while it does the additional process for you. The second thing is the GPU, or the graphics card. So this handles the graphics of like what you see on the monitor. Of course, this is going to be more important as an artist. If you have a faster GPU, then the graphics you want to render will load up quicker. The graphics card also has memory as well, and it's called video RAM, or VRAM, and it's the memory that is for the graphics content. It stores information on pixels and other graphics, so the content's ready for you. So in general, those are the 4 components that I look at when I'm looking at a computer. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump onto the Apple site and I'm going to look at computers from cheapest option all the way to most expensive. I'm going to compare 3 different Macs that you can go when you go right to the site. So if you go to apple.com, you go to store, and then you go to Mac. And then there's a couple different Macs that you can buy. You can buy the Macbook Air, which is their lightest and cheapest laptop. Macbook Pro, which is their professional series of laptops. There's the iMac, which is their all-in-one desktop. Or there's their Mac Mini, which is their cheapest desktop. Very bare bones. And you have the Mac Studio, which is a more beefed up desktop. The Mac Pro, which starts from $7,000, and it's what Pixar animators use. I'm going to start off with the Mac Mini because that starts from $600 and that's the cheapest that you can go. And then I'm going to jump to the MacBook Air and then compare the MacBook Pro. So first up is the Mac Mini. So it starts at $600. I would think about this option if I want to spend the least amount to get by, then I would get this. I would also get this desktop is I don't want any portability in my computer, and I already have a screen, a keyboard, a mouse, and I don't plan on working at a coffee shop. If that's the case, then I would just get this 8-core CPU, 10-core GPU, 8 gigabytes of unified memory, and 256 gigabytes of solid state drive storage. For these specs, I don't really care about the CPU and the GPU that much, but for the memory, I would always try to upgrade and get as much memory as possible. So 16 is recommended just because as an artist, you're going to render a lot of big files. The more memory you have, then the more time you can potentially save. Storage is not as important because you can always get external hard drives or you can save things to the cloud. But if I had to choose, I personally like to have 1 terabyte of storage. If I were to buy a computer, I would probably do 512. So if I were just wanting to get into the Mac ecosystem, this is the cheapest I can get into at $600. But when I look to the right, this one over here, this one is more attractive to me, even though it's double the price. And the reason why is because there's double the storage at 512. So like I can store more files and it already comes with 16 gigabytes of unified memory. And I would just select this one right here. But also with this one, if I do select this one, I could customize it potentially and add 16 gigabytes of memory for an extra $200, and that'll jump up my price to $800. So that's what I would do if I had to go with the Mac Mini. If you want things to be a little bit more portable, then you can choose from the MacBook Air. And you have 3 different options. You have a 13-inch M2 chip, which is their last series chip. You have the M3 chip, which is their shiny and new chip. Or you can go with a 15-inch, which would be the bigger screen size with the latest chipset. Since I'm starting off, then I want to, keep my costs low. So I would start from the last chipset at 13 inches and starting at $1,000. And what are my options here? So like I said before, I'm looking for 16 gigabytes of memory, at least 512 gigabytes of storage. If I just wanted to get into the ecosystem, I can start off here at $1,000, but let's see, okay, not that many other options, right? I could increase the storage, my memory would stay the same. That's not what I want, right? I want 16 gigabytes of RAM. So let's see what happens if I jump to the 13-inch M3 chip. More options here, right? So you have, your base model of the new chipset. So it's going to be a faster chip and it's going to start at $100 more from this 2 base model. But if you spend an extra $200, then you can increase the GPU cores by 2, so faster graphics card, and a bigger hard drive space. But hard drive space, I don't really care about as much because I have hard drive options. The memory is what's important. If I wanted to upgrade to 16 gigabytes of memory and the hard drive space, I'm looking at $1,500 right there, right? So that's $1,500 compared to what I was doing before, which was about $800. So potentially doubling my price by going to the MacBook Air. So now let's go to the MacBook Pro. So first thing, if you go to the MacBook Pro, it's similar to the Air, but the MacBook Pro is going to be heavier. It's going to have more ports to plug things in, more options, better screen, and again, more future-proof, right? So even though it's not as light and beautiful as MacBook Air, then it might be more useful. First thing is like, what's the right size of screen? Is it 14 inches or 16? 14 is fine for me. You have no option but to go off of their new chipset. So they have the M3 chipset, they have a faster chip called M3 Pro, and they have the fastest chip at M3 Max. Because I want to be cognizant of spending, then I'm going to start off with the cheapest option at $1,600. But again, I don't like the fact that there's only 8 gigabytes of memory and 512 gigabytes of SSD storage. If I go to the right, memory still sucks, but storage is doubled at 1 terabyte of SSD storage. That's not what I want. I want 16 gigabytes of memory, right? So this is actually my ideal computer right here if I were to start my business. 8-core CPU, 10-core GPU, which would be really good. 16 gigabytes of unified memory, which would last me a long time as my business grows. And then 1 terabyte of storage, which would be plenty for me. Let's scroll down and see what the options are. I can go more CPU cores here, so 11, 12, 14, or bigger GPU cores, or more memory, right? But then you can see the price down here. It's going to start to hit $2,000, $2,400, and $3,200, which is a little bit too much. So I would probably select this one. So now I have options that range from the Mac Mini, which I priced this one out with 16 gigabytes of memory on the M2 chip at $800. This one right here, which would be the MacBook Air on the M3 chip at $1,500, which would be only 512 gigabytes of SSD storage. Or I can go $500 above that and hit the 2,000 mark, but it would be everything that I need at the 8-core CPU, 10-core GPU, 16 gigabytes unified memory, and 1 terabyte of SSD storage. By going through that video, I hope you see a little bit of my thought process as I look at different computers, and hopefully you can see different options of anywhere ranging from $600 all the way up to $2,000, all in one type of computer that can help your business for at least 3 to 5 to maybe 7 years and get your business up and going. Of course, you don't have to buy any of the computers that I showed you, but the most important thing is I wanted you to see the process of how I analyze the computers as I look between the Mac Mini, the Macbook Air, or the Macbook Pro. What are the common components that I look for, right? So my standards are usually going to be about 16 gigabytes of memory. CPU's not as important, but hard drive space, I'm either bouncing back and forth between 512 gigabytes up to 1 terabyte of storage. But ultimately, it depends on what's right for your type of size of business. I was mainly focused on the stock options that Apple was offering me. If I wanted to double click into any of those options, I can go and customize it. As I customize things, it might take longer for Apple to build and send me that computer, whereas the ones that they offer on the site are going to be ready to go. If you do like those Apple computers, other options you can do is always look into refurbished section, which means people return the computer and they double check to make sure it's okay, but you can get a discount off of that. You have a friend who works at Apple, usually you can get like a 10% discount a couple times a year, depending on what type of employee they are. Another option is just to buy used, right? To try to get things at a discount, or just wait for like Black Friday sale or something like that. Hopefully that was helpful. Give me feedback on if this helped you to make your choice for a laptop, and good luck laptop shopping. Thank you.